Welcome to Best of the Nest, a program produced by the television production students of Armstrong High School that takes a look at things from the students' point of view. I'm Nolan Hallman of AHS-TV, and today we'll be taking a look at whether college athletes should be getting paid and normalizing after COVID. But first, our own Phoenix Petrosky sat down with AHS principal Mr. Kamenos to get his thoughts. Take it away, Phoenix.
Hello, I'm Phoenix Petrosky of AHS-TV, and in this segment of the Best of the Nest, we will take a look at normalizing school post-COVID and how it's viewed from the student's perspective. We will be talking with Mr. Kamenos to get a hawk's eye view, but first, let's take a closer look at students in AHS.
Hello, I'm Jamison Yakmak of AHS-TV, and today we're taking a closer look at how and if things are returning to normal post-COVID. We took to the halls of AHS to see how normal the staff and students feel or things really are. How have you been adjusting to coming back to school since the pandemic?
It's been a little bit hard. Got a little behind in losing the good education while we were online, but it's getting better.
Pretty good now. Then activities are starting up again. Musical's back, so pretty good.
I think it's been a little bit of an adjustment. It hasn't been too bad, just getting back to normal, taking off the masks, everything. I don't know. It's been pretty good though.
What has been your biggest struggle these past couple years from getting back into normalized school?
I think my biggest struggle with normalized school is like math class because I was behind in math. Being online for math, I didn't do my homework, and it's the result you get. So just playing catch up.
Definitely getting used to the workload because with COVID, they kind of eased back on us, and now assignments are due when they're due, and there's not as many
I think the most struggle was probably last year, a couple years, it was online, and then back in school online. It was hard. I don't know, just that.
All right. Do you think normalized school was pushed onto us too fast? And if so, do you think it was pushed on too quickly?
I think it was kind of I don't think it was either. It was kind of a perfect situation. We were in school, normalized school for our whole lives, and we ended up just taking it was like a 2-month break. We ended up getting back to normal, and here we are now.
All right.
Yes, I think we should have maybe done hybrid for maybe just the beginning of the school year to get certain kids adjusted that were on cyber school.
Okay.
No, I think it was pretty comfortable just coming back. Everything was just pretty normal.
This school do better to try to help students feel back to normal?
Maybe just give us more time to do work. I feel like we have a lot of homework to do as they're trying to catch us up, and we don't have a lot of time to do it.
I think ease up on homework, and I think maybe occasionally just keep recording class in case students need to go back and rewatch something to remember what we learned.
All right.
I think last year was a little bit tough, but I think this year they're doing a pretty good job. It's pretty back to normal. Lunches is good. Everyone's all close together now, so I think it's pretty good.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. Straight from the Hawks Peak. Back to you in the studio.
For those of you just joining us today, I'm Phoenix Petrosky of AHS-TV, and I'm joined today with Mr. Kamenos to talk about normalizing school post-pandemic. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
What are some of your thoughts and opinions of online schooling during the pandemic?
Well, when we first had to do it, when the governor shut all the schools down in Pennsylvania, I thought we were a leader in providing online instruction to our students. We wanted to try to provide as much normalcy as we could, knowing that we physically couldn't be together. So a group of teachers and I got together, and then all of our teachers in general really crash coursed into how can we make education keep happening when we physically couldn't be together. And I thought we did a very good job pulling it off early on. And then as things got back to normal, as we were allowed back into school together, I thought that our efforts had to be doubled down in the fact that we had a lot of students that were being forced out due to close contact rules and different COVID rules that we had to follow. But we also know that face-to-face instruction is the best way to go. So, how can we provide continuing education to our students that couldn't be with us while also doing it face-to-face? I thought we did a pretty decent job as a school when I talked to some of my peers and some of my neighbors and other school districts as to how best do we provide for our kids in the face of the pandemic.
Yeah, I truly believe that. I was actually a student during COVID, obviously, here I am, and I thought the way our school handled it was just fine. I know all the knowledge I needed then, and I'm set straight for now.
Good.
Our next question. Did this online school affect you mentally through the pandemic?
I think it affected probably the teachers more than me. However, I would say that we definitely had to double down a lot of our efforts. Not only were we trying to manage things here and keep social distancing in place, getting used to wearing masks and things like that, but then we also had a population that were at home, and we were still trying to provide that I mentioned earlier, that continuing education for those students as well. Whether they chose to stay home, they have family histories. There's many, many reasons why people had to be home and not physically here at school, but yet we needed to continue to try to educate them, because the last thing we wanted to do is hold anybody back through no fault of their own. So, you know, mentally for myself, yeah, I would just say the workload seemed to increase. The phones were constantly ringing. We were constantly meeting online with people because everybody's needs were so different. I felt like we really had to learn a lot of things as we were continually flying the plane, as they always said back in that time. So we're constantly looking at how can we do this better? How can we make sure we're meeting everybody's needs?
Yeah, most definitely. And do you still have some lasting side effects from online schooling?
I think we always will. You know, like I mentioned earlier, the students that were here face to face probably had more of a benefit than those that weren't maybe receiving direct live instruction. Many of our teachers did a great job providing recordings and things like that, but still that interaction between the teacher and the student is vital. That's where the most growth will occur. Now, when I look at some of the data that's been presented to us from the state, our school did very well as far as growth goes. I mean, everybody has shown learning loss through this process, but yet our students still continue to grow for the most part. Not every student, but as a collective of the entire school, you know, we did pretty well.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And what has been your biggest struggle these past couple years from getting back into the normal, so we say, school life?
Well, the rules kept changing on us. You know, I think back to the beginning of the last school year, we were okay not to wear a mask. Well, then, you know, COVID kind of reared its ugly head again. All of a sudden, we were having high levels of people coming down with COVID again. So, you know, our school board of directors made a decision to go back to wearing masks again. So now we had to adjust to that. And then there was some unrest that dealt with that. So how best can we still meet those needs? You know, we had students that were bouncing between going to our cyber academy to going live and trying to pace our instruction so that there wasn't such a large gap. You know, try to be in the same place where our cyber teachers were for regular ed as well. So that became a challenge for us.
Yeah, I just, like saying normal school life, I don't think it'll ever be the same, but this is the new normal.
Well, we learned a lot of things through COVID that we're implementing now. You know, we talked about behaviors. We talked about, you know, what's valuable as far as homework assignments go. Are we assessing the best possible way? You know, are the paper pencil tests the best? You know, we had such a major move using Chromebooks and things of that nature. You know, is our paper and pencil always the best way? Are Chromebooks always the best way? So, you know, we still debate these things, and we're still continually learning as the best way to educate students. So, I always say if you're continuing to learn, you're continuing to grow, and that's our ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Even us as professionals.
And to follow up with my next question, everybody struggled through the pandemic. There was no doubt about that. And through schooling, different grades had struggled. And I was wondering your opinion, what grade do you think struggled the most?
I went to the state principals conference last fall, and I kind of laugh at this because every principal had similar stories as far as certain grades really seemed to struggle. And when you talk to the elementary principals, any student in kindergarten through third grade, because those students never had the benefit of an entire school year, so they lost out on some of that growth. But you talk to the high school and the middle school age principals, it's the same type of deal, whether it's 7th grade, 8th grade, the whole way up to say 9th grade. most of those students, because they never had the experience of being a 7th grade student and the growth that comes with that. They didn't have an entire year. Then 8th grade, we kind of had the same type of deal where we're in school, we're out of school, so they didn't have the entire year. So there's some maturation that occurs, some learning how to be a student that occurs. So I think all of our students probably struggled a little bit. So to pinpoint one specific grade level, I can't do that, but you definitely see pockets of it in the earlier ages. A student such as yourself, a senior, you've been here for a couple years before COVID happened and shut us down. So you had a bit of an inkling of what it was like, but maybe you didn't learn how to be a 9th or 10th grade student as you were going through the pandemic. So, I still think all of our students are a little bit behind, but we're working very hard to try to catch everybody up to where they need to be. And I think nationwide, you're going to see statistics and research that shows that this is a pocket, and it's going to be a pocket in our history that shows that maybe we took a step back, but we fought very hard to come back, and maybe we're going to come back stronger and better than ever. We've reimagined some things in education, and I think it's going to be better for our students in the long run.
That's great to hear. And my next question, what could the school do better to try to help the students feel normal again?
Well, I think just trying to be normal again is the hard thing. Beginning of this school year, we took away the cafeteria options as far as we didn't have the tables all set up in the lobby, and we weren't using the gym anymore. We went back to, instead of people sitting 6 feet apart, we went back to sitting almost shoulder to shoulder. And people were complaining, well, our cafeterias are too crowded, there's not enough chairs. Well, I counted the chairs and I counted the number of bodies. There was 30 or 40 empty seats in the cafeteria. The problem is you weren't used to sitting right next to somebody. So, there's normal interactions, not necessarily wearing a mask, but looking and having eye contact with people and having face-to-face discussions were very difficult for a lot of people because we just haven't done it for a number of years. And again, if you weren't an experienced student, you lost out on that benefit as well. So getting back to normal, part of it is just the human interaction and having the conversations. And then if a student's lacking a skill, what are we doing to help remediate them? Can we catch them up in something? Because just because we as a state stopped doesn't mean the world stopped, because parts of us did continue to grow and the expectations haven't changed. Certain deadlines still came up, they always say death and taxes are the only two things you can't avoid. Well, there's certain deadlines in education that you can't avoid either.
Yeah, most definitely. And, to get things wrapped up here, and I think this question's a no-brainer, but we'll ask Mr. Cominos himself, would you rather be online or in person?
I always thought in person is better, but I'll be honest with you. I've seen some students actually thrive in an online environment. I still want to believe that the face-to-face is the way to go. Even for those students that are thriving in the online setting, there still has to be a component of live instruction.
Yeah, relationships and just small things to learn, just talking. You need to learn that stuff.
Exactly. Interpersonal skills are very important.
Just the small things in life.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Cominos for joining us today to get the Hawk's Eye view on normalizing school post-COVID. Until the next time, I'm Phoenix Petrosky of AHS-TV.
Thanks, Phoenix. We're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back with more of AHS-TV's Best of the Nest.
The Communications, Media, and Instructional Technology PhD program gave my life direction. This program was perfect for me with a combination of research and media production. Hands-on courses gave me skills that I now pass on to my students. I use all three areas of the program, production, theory, and research, every day in my job as a college professor.
Learn how the CMIT PhD program can change your life. Visit iup.edu/CMIT.
And we're back with more of AHS-TV's Best of the Nest. I'm Nolan Hallman of AHS-TV. Now we'll be taking a look at the question if college athletes should be paid. Let's jump right into Connor Jacobs' interview with Dr. Snyder and Mr. Newell.
Hello, I'm Connor Jacobs of AHS-TV, and in this segment of Best of the Nest, we will take a look at the question of should college athletes be getting paid and how it's viewed from the teacher's perspective. We will be talking with Doc Snyder and Mr. Newell to get a hawk's eye view, but first, let's take a closer look at what AHS has to say.
Hi, I'm Isaiah Brown of AHS-TV, and today we're taking a closer look at the question of should college athletes be getting paid. We took to the halls of AHS to see what Mr. Morris and Mr. Caliper have to say. Hello, I'm Isaiah Brown here with
Mr. Morris.
And we have a question for you today. Do you think that students can balance their classes, sports, and a job without declining their mental health?
That is a very difficult situation. My son, who currently plays baseball, did this, all right? And the thing about it is, when you're participating in sport at the college level, it is like a full-time job. He roughly puts in minimum 2 to 3 hours with practice. Then they lift weights, which is another hour. Then he'll go back and do some more practicing. Then he'll hit the training room. So he's like winding up with 6 to 8 hours total devoted to that sport. He was also working. It was like on his off days. He didn't, like on a Sunday they get 1 day off. And then even though they get a day off, they really don't get a day off because he's doing something, either in the training room or lifting or, So it's a very difficult process. And then on top of that, your schoolwork. You're loaded with schoolwork and you're trying to manage that. So you have to be on a tight balancing schedule. If you're not, you're gonna burn out, and I could definitely see that. Right now he's kind of dropped the job. All right, he's just going at it without doing that. So his schedule's a lot lighter. He's enjoying things a little bit better. So I think it can definitely affect your mental health if you're not balancing yourself. All right, you'll stress out.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Isaiah Brown here with
Coach Caliper.
And I know that you played a sport in college, and was it hard to balance your schedule with playing sports without getting overwhelmed?
Yes, it's very difficult not to get overwhelmed. I mean, when you're playing a collegiate sport, it demands a lot of your time and your effort. There's a lot of physical things that go into it as well as mental things, and trying to balance that with your schoolwork, which is the most important reason that you're there, and then trying to have a little bit of fun and trying to balance all those things out. It's definitely a very difficult thing. But at the end of the day, like I said, you got to understand you're there for education, but it's not an easy thing. So it comes down to just time management and prioritizing what's important to you.
Yeah, thank you. We also asked a student planning to go to college for a sport what they think about the matter. Hello, I'm Isaiah Brown here with
Caden Olson.
All right, and since you are a high school athlete planning to go to college, do you think you'll be able to balance a sport and a job if you want a job and also classes?
Yeah, I think it'll be hard, but people have obviously done it in the past, and playing a college sport is pretty difficult as it is with balancing classes and everything, but it can definitely be done, and we'll just have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, thank you. Well, there you have it, folks. Straight from the Hawkspeak. Back to you at the studio.
Thanks, Isaiah. For those of you just joining us, I'm Connor Jacobs of AHS-TV, and I'm joined today with Mr. Knoll and Doc Snyder to talk about the question, should college athletes be getting paid? Thank you for joining us today. What are some of your thoughts on college athletes getting paid?
I understand the rationale behind it with the massive amounts of revenue that are being generated by some of these universities and wanting to reward the athletes that allow them to make those revenues. But I just worry about their status, whether that makes them a college athlete or whether they're pro, and how that affects the athletics at these universities now.
And how about you?
I feel that college athletes are really getting paid. If they are full scholarship, they don't have that massive amount of debt when they come out of college that somebody else might have. So they, in effect, are getting a paycheck. My brother was full scholarship, and he actually, for spending money, had to answer the phone in the athletic office, and he got paid for that. So not only did he not have tuition, but he also had spending money just for saying, hello, this is Barron Athletics or whatever.
So since you feel like college athletes shouldn't be getting paid, do you think they should, their opportunity should be in pro?
Well, the percentage of college athletes that actually go pro is probably very small, I would think. So I suppose they're going to make money as a pro athlete, but the big deal, I think, is the debt. You come out of college debt-free, that's amazing. Majority of people come out of college with a massive amount of debt to pay back. If you don't have that, even if you're not a pro athlete, you are head and shoulders above people that have $100,000 debt, $120,000 in debt.
Now, some of these schools that are bringing in billions of dollars a year still are not paying their athletes. So why do you think that is?
Well, I think originally the reason that they weren't being paid is because of their amateur status. And I think just to piggyback off what Doc said, they're getting paid in their scholarship as well. So I think a lot of that has factored into this. But I think with the new rule of NIL, with their image and their likeness being represented, I kind of understand that. Like I said, I just worry about what their status has become with that being said. Now, are we saying that all colleges and all programs, because of NIL, are pro athletes now? So it's, for me, it's kind of like an undecided. It's kind of like I can see the pros, but I also can see the cons of that.
So, Doc, do you feel that free tuition is enough to pay for these college students working hard, making money for their college?
You would really have to sit down. I do. So the answer is yes. But I think you would have to sit down to see, I know they're generating a lot of revenue, especially big schools that have big sports. That's generating a ton of revenue for the school. What are they using all that revenue for? Coaches? Are they using it for athletic programs? Or are they using it to help pay some of the college bills? Also, a lot of those colleges have huge alumni input. People go out, they still give and donate to the school. So you would really have to sit and, I think, look at the books to understand where all those funds are going and can we really afford as a college to pay an athlete. Colleges are businesses, after all, just the same as, well, pretty much everything is a business.
So these kids going to school now for free tuition, if they do start to become paid, do you think it should be above minimum wage or just enough to keep them stable?
I think probably enough to keep them stable would be appropriate, but I think we need to look at the level of the university too. You've got like a Penn State, right? And I'm obviously going to speak to wrestling because that's what I know. Their wrestling program is huge, and they've got huge alumni input, like Doc said, and they've got huge revenues. But then you look at a smaller school, like a Division III school, how are they going to represent that NIL like Penn State does? Do they all have the same rules? Do each division have their own rules? So that's something that needs to be looked at too, as far as for their level of compensation.
So do you think, how do you think that students that come from a home that do not have the resources to provide a stable money source to their children in college feel about not having the money to buy things like clothes and food for them while they're in school?
Well, it would just be like your average Joe going to college. Not all parents have the money to give to their kid, and if you want it, you'll do it. You'll work, you'll provide for yourself. I know athletes put a lot of time into their sport. Don't get me wrong, I understand that that's true. But I also understand that athletes, especially at big schools, have access to a lot more resources than your average student.
So do you think that they would be going to pro by having them get paid?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that is one of my hang-ups is, what is this making them? Is this making them a pro athlete? Like, do we have to change the rules for colleges now? And I think that the slippery slope that we get into is it only going to be these huge schools like, Alabama football or Penn State wrestling? And are they going to be the only ones that are doing this? Or do we have the same rules across the board? So it's something that really I feel like needs to be looked at as a whole and not just huge revenue institutions.
So do you think that it's greedy for athletes to want more than just free tuition?
Not greedy. They're going to take what, if somebody offers you, offers you a scholarship, you're going to take it. I don't think it's greedy. I just think that if, piggybacking on what Mr. Newell said, I think if you're on a slippery slope, are we going to have player unions? Are we going to negotiate a pay for, you play D1, so you get this amount of, there's a lot of nebulous stuff going on out there.
So, do you think that all of the athletes should be getting paid, or just like the top 3 kids of the team, or, you know, like the stars of the team?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we're talking about is, you know, are the rules all the same across the board? Or, you know, I think the way NIL works right now, it's all about image and likeness. So if you have athletes that are, you know, kind of the face of a program and stuff, they're obviously going to get more than someone else, but that doesn't mean that someone else is doing any less work, right? So it's very difficult, and I would need a little bit more research to kind of understand, you know, how this all is going to play out, what the rules are, how their, you know, compliance goes with all that kind of stuff at the NCAA. So, I mean, that's a very difficult question to answer.
So, regarding mental health, what do you think would help athletes balance their classes, a sport, and a job without getting too stressed out or depressed?
College is stress, just FYI. No matter what you do, if you're playing a sport, if you're pushing yourself in the academics, it's stressful. And college takes a mental toughness, as does athletics. So, and there are all kinds of mental health helps for athletes, for students, I've had students who have gone on to school that have not been athletes, that put themselves under a tremendous amount of stress just to make the grades. So mental health is really a whole other ball game, but there are lots of helps for the mental health world out there.
And to wrap things up, do you think that students not having time for themselves while playing a sport in college affects their overall mental health?
So I think it might be, but I believe that, and I know this just from looking at certain universities, a lot of these athletes have so much more as far as mental health goes and the resources they have compared to a regular student, right? So they have got all these other resources, and to be fair, when you go to school and you go to school to play a sport, that's the sacrifice you're making. Your time is the sacrifice you're making, and that's, I feel like, one of the things that sets you up for life, understanding how to prioritize time. And I feel like that's one of the things that college has always done, has taught young men and women to prioritize their time, what things are most important, what things need to get done. And so I feel like that's one of the sacrifices you make when you become an athlete at the college level.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan Docksnyder, for joining us today to get the Hawk's Eye view on the question, should college athletes be getting paid?
Well, that's our show for this week. Best of the Nest is a production of the students enrolled in television production courses at Armstrong High School. Join us again next time for a look at some of the unique things happening in and around Armstrong High School from the students' point of view. Until then, from our nest to yours, have a great week.